It started like any other quiet morning in a small town where everyone knows each other, and not much ever seems to change. But that peace was shattered when a group of local cops were seen doing something that left neighbors in disbelief. In front of an old, weathered home at the end of the block, smoke rose from a small fire, and what was burning shocked everyone watching. It was the American flag. Not just any flag, but one that had belonged to a decorated veteran, a woman who had served her country with pride. At first, no one understood why the officers were there or what had led to this moment. Whispers spread fast. Some said it was a mistake. Others believed there was more to the story. But what no one expected was what the veteran did next. Calm but furious, she stepped inside her house, picked up the phone, and made one call that would change everything. What she said, and who she called, set off a chain reaction that no one saw coming. This isn't just a story about a flag. It's about respect, pride, and standing up when it matters most. It's about a woman who thought her years of service were long behind her, until that one moment reminded her that some fights are never really over. And just when the officers thought it was all said and done, they got a call of their own, one that left them stunned. You won't believe what happened next. Her name was Margaret Hale. Most folks just called her Miss Maggie. At 78 years old, she still walked with the same sharp posture she had back in her army days. Everyone in the neighborhood knew her story, how she'd served overseas, lost friends in battle, and came home to raise her family with quiet strength. That flag, the one now turned to ash in her front yard, had been folded and given to her at her husband's funeral. He'd been a Marine, laid to rest with full honors. That flag meant everything to her. So why would anyone, let alone the local police, burn it? The officers said they were acting on a complaint, something about old items being stacked too close to the porch, possible fire hazards. But neighbors who watched the whole thing unfold swear that wasn't the real reason. They said the cops never knocked, never asked. They just walked onto her property and lit a match. And when Maggie came outside and saw what was happening, her face didn't show fear. It showed something colder. Determination. That's when she made the call. No one knew who she dialed, but it wasn't long before two unmarked cars showed up. Men in suits, not local. They walked straight past the officers and into Maggie's house without saying a word. That's when people started asking questions. Why would a simple veteran have that kind of pull? What was really going on behind those doors? And what did she say on that call? As the unmarked cars idled outside Maggie's home, the officers who had started the fire stood off to the side, suddenly quiet. The mood had shifted. What was supposed to be a routine visit had turned into something bigger, something they clearly hadn't expected. The neighbors kept their distance, but they watched closely. Phones were out, recording. Everyone was trying to make sense of it, but no one had answers. And inside that little house, behind drawn curtains, something was happening that no one could see. It didn't take long before word spread that Maggie wasn't just any veteran. Rumors flew fast. Some said she used to work in intelligence. Others whispered that her late husband had been involved in something classified. Whatever the truth was, it was clear Maggie had connections, powerful ones, and now those connections were being activated. Meanwhile, the local police department started scrambling. A deputy was overheard at a gas station later that day, saying this wasn't supposed to go public. Another officer was seen removing paperwork from the station late at night. It was as if someone was trying to cover their tracks, but it was already too late. The videos were online. People were angry. Veterans groups began commenting. News vans showed up the next morning. Some neighbors started coming forward, sharing past stories about strange visits to Maggie's house, black cars, men in suits, conversations that stopped when someone got too close. This wasn't just about a flag anymore. Something else was buried beneath the ashes. By the third day, Maggie's quiet street had turned into a media circus. Reporters lined the sidewalks. Police cruisers made slow loops around the block. The local sheriff finally gave a short, tense statement saying the incident was being looked into, but he refused to take questions. Meanwhile, The two men in suits were still in town. No one knew where they were staying or who exactly they worked for, but they were seen coming and going from Maggie's house at odd hours, sometimes carrying folders, sometimes nothing at all. Inside the house, Maggie didn't show her face much, but a neighbor caught a glimpse of her through the window one night, standing perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the folded corner of an old photo. It was her and her husband in uniform, taken decades ago. Something in her posture said she wasn't just mourning a burned flag, she was preparing for something. Behind the scenes, phone records were being pulled. Legal pressure started mounting. One of the officers involved in the flag burning suddenly went on personal leave. Another deleted his social media overnight. Whispers of misconduct and internal tension within the department got louder. Then came the leak. A file, anonymous, untraceable, was sent to a local journalist. It included surveillance photos, strange documents stamped with federal markings, and one handwritten note that simply read, "She knows." Asterisk. That was the moment things reached a boiling point, and just when the town thought the worst was over, a convoy of black vehicles pulled into Maddie's driveway at sunrise. Engines cut, doors slammed. The neighborhood held its breath as the black vehicles lined up in front of Maddie's house, more than anyone had seen before. Men and women stepped out, some in suits, others in plain clothes, each wearing the same cold, unreadable expression. One carried a briefcase. Another had what looked like a portable scanner. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about a veteran's flag anymore. But then something no one expected happened. Maggie didn't come to the door. Instead, her niece, a woman no one had seen before, stepped out. Early 30s, firm voice, eyes sharp like Maggie's. She introduced herself as Rachel Hale, former military intelligence, now a federal analyst. And she had one message for the agents gathering outside. Asterisk, you're not coming in without a warrant. Asterisk. That single sentence shifted the mood fast. Some of the agents looked surprised. Others, not so much. And within minutes, they backed off but didn't leave. Instead, they set up down the street, watching, waiting. It was clear now. This wasn't just cleanup. This was surveillance. Rachel stayed close to her aunt, keeping her away from the cameras and the crowd. But behind the scenes, she was making her own moves. Contacts. Calls. She was digging into something buried years ago. Something connected to her uncle's service record, and a mission that had gone dark during the Cold War. Whatever had been hidden, whatever they thought was lost, someone clearly wanted it kept that way. And then came the second twist. An anonymous message slid under their door that read, asterisk, they're not here because of what burned. They're here because of what survived. Asterisk. The message changed everything. Asterisk, they're here because of what survived. Asterisk. Rachel didn't waste time. She went straight to the attic, a place Maggie hadn't touched in years. Dust-covered boxes lined the space, filled with old uniforms, medals, and newspaper clippings. But tucked behind a loose panel in the wall was something else, a metal container, sealed tight, marked with numbers and a faded military insignia. Inside was a stack of classified documents, photos, and one weathered cassette tape. The documents outlined a covert operation from the late 1980s, something even Rachel had only heard whispers about. Maggie's husband, it turned out, had been part of a mission that exposed a deep-cover spy ring operating within U.S. borders. The case had been buried, classified to protect higher-ups. But Maggie had kept proof. She kept it because she didn't trust the people who told her to forget. And now, decades later, someone had found out. The flag burning was just a cover, a distraction to justify entering the property. They never expected Maggie to fight back, or for her niece to show up with federal-level clearance of her own. With the help of a trusted journalist, Rachel arranged a quiet transfer of the documents to the right hands. Within 48 hours, 2 agents seen near Maggie's house were pulled from the field. Internal Affairs launched a probe into the local department. The story was breaking nationwide. But just when Maggie thought it was over, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo of her husband, in uniform, standing beside a man she'd never seen before. On the back, scribbled in black ink, asterisk, he wasn't the only one who made it home. Asterisk. The photo shook Maggie more than anything else had. Her husband had never spoken about the man beside him, and now, years later, someone wanted her to know he wasn't alone when he came back. Rachel took the photo and began quietly reaching out through her contacts. After weeks of digging, they discovered the man was part of the same mission, long thought to be missing in action. He'd assumed a new identity and disappeared into civilian life under government orders. Maggie's husband had helped him vanish to protect him from the people trying to silence the truth.